everybody, and welcome back to the Mavon Perspective. We are so thrilled to be back.
Yes, we are.
All things real estate.
All things real estate.
You know, John and I could talk about a lot of topics, and we toyed around with a lot of topics, but decided today in this ever-changing market and ever-changing industry that we work in, there's a lot of challenges. You know, you want to talk about the pretty houses, and you want to talk about all the exciting, you know, closings. And while those are all well and good, there are some challenges that we face, unfortunately, just like with any good thing.
Right.
Sometimes a little trial and tribulation has to happen, and that's okay. But you and I have recently talked, and I think it'll be interesting for everyone to hear today, kind of on the biggest challenges that both our industry as a whole, but both buyers, sellers, and our agents are all facing.
Yes.
So if it's good with you, I think we'll go into those challenges, kind of talk through if I'm a buyer, I'm a seller, and I'm a new agent, what do I do to overcome these challenges? But then also, you know, any caveats that you have from all the years of experience, and then getting all the phone calls from the agents all the time.
Sure.
All the phone calls, you know, as to what they're seeing and what our agents are doing to overcome them as well.
Right.
Because real life application.
Yeah. And every transaction has its challenges.
Right.
And you know, they're all there for buyers, sellers, and agents, but they're all different, but they all have to work together to make it all,
that's right,
you know, get to the finish line. So it is a little bit of a puzzle to put together, but we're making it happen.
And this isn't going to be a downer, just so everybody knows. We're not going to be doom and gloom by any means, but there are things that I think as a buyer or seller, you've got to stay educated on.
Yep. What
should you be on the lookout for? What should you be requesting from your agents? And then as agents, whether you're a Mavon agent or not, kind of what you should be on the lookout for and also kind of prepared for. So let's get right into it. The first challenge that we want to talk about today is kind of the affordability and the financing side of what is out there. So, you know, housing affordability is always in the news. It's always, the Chamber of Commerces are always talking about it. You probably don't have a week across America that there isn't a panel.
That's right.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
A podcast, a panel, you know, whatever it might be. Really talking about, obviously, mortgage rates has been a hot topic. Housing, you know, the prices, can people with a standard, you know, day job be able to afford where they're living? And then what does that mean when you go to sell the house? So I guess tell us a little bit about what you're seeing as far as that challenge goes.
Yeah. And, you know, housing affordability is the hot topic in the news, especially on the national level.
Right.
Saw a long segment on the news just a day or two ago about it. And I think, though, the uniqueness in our market, when you look at housing affordability, yes, houses are costing more and every day. They're still trending up. But on the national level, our area is still the most bang for the buck on the national average. I mean, you can get a great house and it still be affordable.
Yeah.
But I think, especially in our area, housing affordability, yes, that's a big deal. But I think the bigger challenge is that housing affordability is a piece of the problem in overall affordability. In other words, you know, a truck's not $30,000 anymore. It's
Gas,
60 or 70.
Yeah.
The grocery store is not $100. It's $200.
Right.
You know, a nice restaurant's not a Friday night date night anymore. It's a special occasion.
That's right.
So I think overall affordability is the bigger conversation. But, you know, as that applies to buyers and sellers and agents, I mean, you know, buyers are challenged with, again, rising prices, higher interest rates, bigger down payments, all those kind of things. And then, you know, sellers get trapped in, sometimes so many of us have a very low interest rate.
Yep.
And so now, okay, I'm selling, I got to move. And now what's my rate going to do? So we see more cash buyers, all of that stuff. And the burden on the agent falls back to, and we say it on every podcast we do. In today's world, the agent has to be on top of their game. They have to be educated. They have to be articulate. And they have to rise up and become that, you know, financial advisor. Right. Is exactly what they have to do. Well, and our agents are doing that, by the way.
Yeah, for sure. And they've had to. And I think, you know, even post-COVID, there have been so many changes just in general in the world. But post-COVID, our agents have become a lot better, I would say, about communicating.
Yep.
So communication, not just face-to-face, you know, whether it's an in-town or out-of-town buyer. text messages, emails, staying in touch with them on social media, whatever it might be, they are doing a better job of communicating. And I think they have really kind of raised that bar on communication,
right,
which probably as a whole needed to happen in our industry.
Yeah.
But I do think, one important note is, while things are going up in price, so is the quality.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about new construction and the affordability there. People want to complain that our new construction neighborhoods as a whole, especially in our area, used to be even sometimes several $100,000 less. Very true.
Mm-hmm.
But talk to me about also the quality that they're getting now.
Sure.
The technology that's in these homes is not what it used to be.
Yep.
The green side of, talk to me a little bit about that.
No, new construction is interesting because, again, it's a competitive market.
Mm-hmm.
And so builders, they're competing for that pool of buyers. And so there's a pressure on them to deliver not just an affordable product, but a high quality product. Now, granted, there's a place for everything depending on the buyer. Mm-hmm. But I think buyers more and more are trying to find that what I can afford, but I don't want just bare minimum
cookie cutter,
barely making code quality. I want a nice place I can call home and have some confidence in for years to come.
Mm-hmm.
And so new construction really is a hot thing right now. We've got several developments coming, and the builders that we partner with are top notch. They do a great job. They've got local reputations and that are good. And, it's a privilege to be a part of that with them.
Sure.
But again, with inventory, in a lot of places in the nation, you hear inventory shortages.
Yep.
But in our market, it's really, inventory is rising.
Mm-hmm.
And we got about 2,500 homes, new construction and resale combined.
Total.
In the Augusta MLS, about 1,300 in Aiken. So, you got 3,500 plus homes on the market. But I think inventory is one of the things that's causing a little confusion with buyers and sellers, because buyers look at it and say, okay, inventory is rising, so this is going to work in my favor. There's more selection. And sellers, on the other hand, look and say, well, you know what? Prices are still going up. That's going to work in my favor.
That's right.
And so, you've got those things working together with the inventory, but I guess the short answer is there's plenty out there to choose from, and there's a lot of quality. You can get something good for not going totally broke.
Right. And we'll touch on that in just a second. But before we finish up with this first kind of challenge, if you will, any last suggestions when someone is, just kind of not sure on, is now a good time, or what should I be doing? What do you suggest? Any kind of final words on this first challenge?
If I'm a buyer, I think, the temptation is should I wait for rates to come down?
Yep.
Should I wait for prices to come down? Buyer, the temptation is to wait on the perfect timing to enter the market.
Yeah.
But I think the buyer, and the agent has to help them understand this, the buyer has to get into a mindset of not so much perfect timing and the right price at the right rate, but more focus on overall long-term goals.
Okay.
And, is this where I want to live?
Right.
And if I buy this house, I may be paying a little more than I want to, but historically it is going to go up. It's going to be a good investment.
Yeah.
So you got to take your eyes off of the here and now and look long-term.
Right. And always reach out to me about mortgage, right? I mean, get qualified,
absolutely.
find out what you can afford. That's the other thing is, I think sometimes you're pleasantly surprised, and instead of the opposite, sometimes you're pleasantly surprised on what your affordability actually does look like. So great first challenge and overcoming that. The second challenge, we've touched on it a little bit, but let's kind of dive into it a little bit more with, inventory as a whole. And we'll talk about what our inventory is in this market, but also that pricing uncertainty. So, people always want to say, is it a buyer? I mean, if I haven't had it 10 times in this week, right? Yep. Is it a buyer's market or a seller's market, John? What do we do? I think you and I have done that on this podcast about 1,000 times.
Yes.
Yeah. all of the above. But again, in a lot of the country, for sure, the inventory is lower. We talk to our partners across the world, and they're dealing with a little bit of a dip. We know we don't necessarily have that, but based on this region, are there different negotiation strategies? Are there things that our buyers and sellers need to be asking for from their agents? And then on the reverse of that, what do our agents need to be advising their clients on?
when you look at the statistics, and it's really intriguing. And a lot of the agents, the buzzword seems to be now when I talk to agents, I'm hearing a lot, okay, what's the market? The word I'm hearing is it's weird. It's just weird out there. And
the world is weird.
I think the reason why is because if you ask, and like you said a minute ago, is it a buyer's market or a seller's market? If I look at, in our case, our M stats that give us all the stats on the market, what is it doing?
Right.
I can show you some stats that show, you know what, I think it's a buyer's market. Time on the market, month supply is rising. Inventory is rising. That says, okay, maybe a buyer's market.
Yeah.
But then you go over to the other stats and you go, okay, average sales price is still going up. Closings are up for the year. Pendings are up. So stuff is selling. So you've got a buyer saying, man, I think I can get a deal. You got a seller saying, I think I can still get prices I got 3 or 4 years ago.
Right.
So what is the answer? Is it a buyer's market or a seller market? That's where negotiation comes in.
Agree.
That's the beauty of negotiation. It can be either, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Well,
right?
and I think it all depends on how you slice and dice it. And I think every home is such a different circumstance, right? So our agents, probably have contract questions and they come to you or they come to their broker and they ask these questions because they've got a buyer looking and the buyer's just for sure that seller is overpricing. And while the comps might not say that, X, Y, and Z. And I do think that negotiation and our agents, especially being that qualified level of service to provide that negotiation to not only advise, but also talk through with the selling agent, kind of how they got to that number, why they got to that number. What does that look like? Because I think there's always a reason, an agent, and contrary to popular belief, agents don't just pull numbers out of thin air.
No.
Or not good ones.
Right.
Now, sometimes a seller will pull a number out of thin air because their sister's brother's aunt, heard that their house could be worth $500,000. But I think common mistakes, that we're seeing probably are some agents, or letting a seller maybe dictate overpricing it a little bit. How do you propose or what do you suggest and advise our agents when they come to you and say, my seller is killing me? They want to list this 50,000 over what I'm suggesting. What is your go-to advice?
Well, I will say, I do believe, and this sounds like something a real estate broker would say, but I'm being as transparent and honest as I can.
Yeah.
I think the real estate agent's role is more important than ever right now.
I agree.
For both buyers and sellers, because there's so much information out there that not only us having access to it, but the buyers and sellers do. And so, you can get just overwhelmed with that.
Right.
But I think a key word here is trust is one key word. I think the agent has to have enough knowledge and enough insight on the market and enough, sincere desire to help their client to build the trust so that they can provide accurate data to both buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
And then they can make those choices, because I think, like we just talked about, there is conflicting information out there.
Right.
So now it becomes more important about the agent and their skill level. It becomes more important about, if you're a seller, the condition of the house, the desirability of the house. Yeah. All of those things affect, is it a buyer's market or seller's market? If I've got a great house in a great location at fair market value, it's a seller's market for me because it is going to sell.
Yeah.
And so, not to ramble, but I mean, it's just, it really is strategic right now.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to know what they're doing.
Right. And I think again, you have to trust your gut in some situations.
Yeah.
And you have to trust the agent, but you have to trust your gut. And if for some reason, even if the house is quote unquote just right, and the house doesn't feel right, you have to trust, kind of where you're going on that to wrap up that challenge, or, in general, kind of where we're going with the market and the shortage or not a shortage. Do you foresee the second half of this year changing, or you think we're going to stay pretty steady with our inventory?
I think with inventory, it continues to slightly tick up. I think that's going to continue. I think rates are going to kind of stay leveled off.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we're going to see more of the same, which is, I put it to you this way, and again, who knows?
Right.
What I mean,
nobody can justify the market.
Knows.
Yeah,
so,
no, absolutely, absolutely.
So don't play this back in December and say, "What were you thinking?"
Promise.
I don't think it's going to get worse. I think it's going to get better.
Yeah,
I feel good about everything. The overall economy is a key to it. That's a key to it. And I don't think we talk enough about that. We try to dial it into housing.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if I wasn't paying double for everything else, I could afford a house.
Sure.
So it all works together.
It does, for sure. Well, and it's again, we've said it multiple times probably already today. We are very lucky to be in the area that we're in.
Yeah.
When we're dealing with these challenges.
No doubt.
So, we always have to remember that. And we always have to remember real estate is sometimes cyclical. And if we are in a valley, we will come up again.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I think we are, and we've had a couple great months as a whole. So, All right, moving into this last challenge, kind of consumer expectations versus information overload. We've said it time and time again.
Right.
We are all way more educated. We all have a medical degree. I don't know if our doctors know that, but when we go into the doctor's office, we are already diagnosed with our own diagnosis, if you will. But I feel like our community as a whole, have podcasts like this. They go to panels. They have everything on the internet. They have chat. They have AI. They have Claude. They have all the things. And an agent will tell them one thing, and they will immediately put it in Claude or chat, and they will tell them something different. And then the agent is wrong because the computer is smarter.
Right.
And I think that's a different podcast for a different day. Don't get me started on that. Yeah. However, the relational side of what we do is so important. And the trust side of what we do, like you said, is so important. Where do you think the happy medium between consumer expectations, all the information they're getting, and actually the expertise of the agents, kind of comes from?
Well, and I will say, I do and you do, we all do. We all consult at least with information through AI or whatever.
The internet in general.
And there's value there.
For sure.
But here's, I think, what you have to remember in this age of just overwhelming overload of information, okay, is that while the information is helpful, statistics are accurate for the most part, but here's the difference when it comes to a real estate purchase or sale, is that the computer AI cannot go into a house, analyze the situation, see the floor plan, see the condition, know what's happening as much as in that particular neighborhood.
Right.
Whereas an experienced agent who is doing what we're supposed to do, being experts in our field, can go in and take that same information, but then I say apply reality to it.
That's right.
And so I think there's a balance. There's value in all the information.
That's right.
But there's equal and even greater value in having a professional consultant who knows what they're doing to advise you.
Yeah.
So I think you got to find a balance there. I think, again, I use the word trust. I think for buyers, success is going to come by understanding the affordability, not having unrealistic expectations. For sellers, success is going to be tied to proper pricing and having the house in the condition to sell. And for agents, it is more important than ever. You have got to be educated. You have got to be in tune with the industry.
Yep.
And again, all that has to work together to find a balance.
Well, and communication, I think, is also key because why do we seek the internet for things? Because we don't already know it.
Right.
Why do we seek the internet for things? Because we're impatient, right? It's just like, why do you Amazon something versus driving to Target?
Yeah.
Because it's quicker, it's easier, it can be in your doorstep tomorrow. You didn't have to use that expensive gas to go anywhere. It's the same thing. If our agents are staying ahead of things and communicating and telling, their client, here's what's coming next.
Yep.
That person is not getting on the internet to find out what's my due diligence. What does that mean?
Exactly.
If we are doing our jobs and I think, again, I go back to my initial statement, our agents have gotten increasingly better year over year with that. And communication has gotten so much easier. I mean, 15 years ago, we didn't have apps to communicate with people moving from China. We didn't have, social media to message to find an agent. So things have just gotten so different. But I do think there's a lot of conflicting information out there in any industry, but especially in ours. And I was just talking to an agent the other day. She's not with our company, but she had her first listing presentation with a couple, and they very quickly told her what their home was worth based on their internet searches.
Right. Yeah.
Well, they had some things in their house that obviously they had not plugged into this internet search. And so her price was a little bit different. And she had to basically brutally tell them, you've got to rip up carpet. Because you didn't tell AI that there were stains and that it smelled like X, Y, and Z.
Exactly.
They don't touch, feel, and sense what we can do in person. And so again, the information, is conflicting sometimes. For our agents, do you feel like there is a way to continue to stay ahead of that information overload? Or is there a way to maybe, kind of not squash, but at least temper their clients' expectations? Hey, I know you're going to see this. I know if you put this in Zillow, this is what you're going to see. If you put it in, any of the sites, here's, what you might see. Any suggestions for them that way?
Oh gosh, several. First, let me say that I am so proud of our agents. I think they have accepted, understood, embraced, and adapted to industry changes, particularly the information overload. And I think the agents have to have that same information. In other words, if I'm going on a listing appointment, I need to look at Zillow
for sure
and see what it says, because I know that seller's going to.
That's right.
So I think that the agent has to embrace all of this, but they have to add the element of experience and real life examples, and they can then go in and they've got to have confidence now. Yeah. And you have confidence by being prepared.
By being educated.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I guess it's like this. I guess an analogy is, if I have maybe some pain in my body or something's going on, I'm going to put it in AI. Okay, this is hurting. What could it be? And it's going to give me this, this, and this, but I'm still going to the doctor.
That's right.
And I'm going to listen to that expert where he may be able to say, oh, I've seen this a dozen times. Here's what we need to do.
Right.
So I think that's the thing. Use the information, but don't let it use you.
Yeah. And that's the same thing for newer agents. You don't have to be a veteran agent to become educated.
Right.
You can take the same CE. You can Google the same things. You can use, all of these search engines, and then you can use your resources sitting right here at this table across from me. I'm probably not the resource they want. They probably just want you.
No.
But the resources at this table and within the company or wherever brokerage you're in, to say, I've got this appointment. This client is really leaning heavy on this price, and I can't explain it. Communicate ahead of time to get the answers that you need also, so that you bring to the table that expertise.
Absolutely.
I do think, again, at the end of the day, the amount of information we consume is not going anywhere. It is only going to get worse, unfortunately.
Yes.
We can't unplug. We can't walk away. And it is just the way that the world is right now. However, using that to our advantage, communicating better, learning more about things, and again, sometimes our sellers maybe don't tell us everything straight away.
Sure.
You do your own research on the property. You can find out some things.
Well, I think you have to remember too, in our business historically has been relationship based.
Right.
And I think it still
100%.
is.
Yes.
But here's what I keep thinking is, okay, all the information, yes, use it, embrace it. Let's use it to help us get where we want to go. But at the end of the day, you've got a buyer, a seller, and an agent or two trying to make all this work. And there's still, you said it, communication, everybody understanding what's going on. And at the end of the day, the AI, the artificial intelligence, can't put this deal together. You've got a buyer who wants to buy, a seller who wants to sell, and an agent or two to help them through it.
That's right.
And I don't think that will ever change.
Yeah.
That will never change. And so many, I see it from where I sit. I see it all the time, where I can give you example after example where what held this deal together and brought it to the table was those buyer, seller, and agent working together to make it happen.
Right.
And so that's never going to change.
Well, and it's a lot easier to tell a human across from you what your goal is,
Yep.
you know, whether it's an emotional goal, whether it's a financial goal, whether it's a in between the two, communicating what your goals are as a group, like you said, having good relationships with your co-broker agents or with both sides of the transaction, is the key to that, because it is a very sometimes long process. And there are a lot of third-party things that can kind of come in and start infiltrating. And so when you have kind of that communication core, I do think that really helps overcome that challenge. Okay, a couple quick rapid fire things. We're just going to breeze through. You tell me what you think. Do you feel like affordability is a bigger issue, let's just say in this market, than inventory? Affordability or inventory? Which one do you think is harder right now?
I would say still affordability, only because of overall affordability. Inventory is not a big deal. It was a couple of years ago when there were 600 houses on the market. But right now, right now there's if you want a house and you got certain things you want, you can find it.
Okay.
So I'd lean toward affordability, but not just housing, just overall.
In general.
Yeah.
Okay. Or in your opinion, I guess, are you seeing sellers still expecting kind of that 2021 post-COVID market sell conditions? Are they still shooting for the moon, our sellers right now? Or do you think they've kind of tempered down?
I'm seeing just a touch of it, and the agents could tell you better than me. But what I'm hearing is sellers are getting a little more realistic.
Okay.
And I give, again, credit to agents for helping educate them.
Yeah.
But I'm feeling better about that than I was a year ago.
Yeah, because we did struggle after we came out of that boom, so to speak.
Yeah.
Everybody was still in their heads booming. The boom had bust, if you will.
So I think people are getting more realistic on both sides.
Okay, good.
Buyers and sellers.
Yeah. What about agents? If you're talking straight to our agents or other agents out there, how can they differentiate themselves in today's environment? That's information overload. You know, our clients and customers alike are both more educated than ever. And they're also somewhat impatient, because just as humans, we're impatient.
Yep.
How can our agents really differentiate themselves?
I think they have to, and most of them are doing this. But as an agent, sometimes there's the temptation of, I know how to do this, I'm doing it a while, I'm a good people person.
Right.
I think you have to spend more time in the information so that you're seeing what your prospects and clients are seeing.
That's right.
So that you can talk on their level with it. I think it's just a more time. And that's why, when we have, I don't want to get on this soapbox, but when we have sales meetings and small group training meetings and CE, come to these things.
Yeah.
This is the stuff we're talking about.
That's right.
So I think just, again, being students of the business and more informed than ever.
And you learn from each other. I mean, that's the other beautiful thing is I think when you're surrounded by agents doing business, a lot of business for some of them, you're going to learn through osmosis. You're going to learn through their questions. You're going to learn through their answers, their phone calls, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
We all learn from each other that way, which is great. Okay. Lastly, to wrap up, and then anything you want to add, what opportunities do you think, real estate gets a bad rap sometimes, we're not quite car salesmen.
Right.
No offense to our favorite car salesmen out there, but we're not quite car salesmen, but there are a lot of people that when they talk to an agent, no, I'm just looking. I don't want any information, how can agents still succeed and gain that trust? And what are those steps, and how do we overcome some of those objections with these challenges?
I think, and sometimes our industry is one of those that like people, I wish I didn't have to deal with it. but I see so much good in our agent. Our agents are people with families and problems like everybody else. And this is going to sound corny, but I think I said trust earlier. So how do you do that? I think agents have to have, the word I want to use is empathy. You have to understand that the buying and selling process is an emotional time, even when it's going exactly like it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
I think you have to have empathy. You have to have patience. And I think you have to genuinely care about people. And I think that is what, along with, you have to be competent, like we already talked about. You got to be competent. You got to be informed. You got to be confident. you have to have all those skills as a sales and consulting professional.
Sure.
But what people can really see or not see is, does that person care about me and my family?
That's right.
And I think when you learn to put that in place, people are going to favor you over just all the info out there.
Yeah.
So we just got to love what we do and love who we're doing it for.
That's right.
It sounds simple. It sounds corny, but that's what I believe.
It's not rocket science. And some days, like we've talked about, there are more challenges. You know, some days things just all fall into place. But on the days that there are challenges, remembering why people chose you and what will make them refer you and what will make the next person choose you isn't necessarily a social media reel. While I love social media videos, they're great. And plenty of our agents get business from them. That is not necessarily what is going to make you successful and fruitful for the rest of your career. It is those relationships you're building. It is that trust, and it is the genuine empathy and that empathetic behavior that you extend. So I think overcoming challenges can always be solved if you keep those things in mind.
And you can put yourself in the position of the consumer and not the agent. I mean, you can sense. We've unfortunately spent some time in the hospital this past week with my stepdad. And when different doctors and nurses come in, they're all smart. They all got a degree. Sure. They all know what they're doing, I would assume. But we hope. But you can, some will walk out of the room and you go, that's a nice guy.
Yeah.
That's
bedside manner.
That's what people in this, again, last thing, in this world of all the automation and all of that, people are craving the relationship.
That's right.
They may not even know it.
Yeah.
But people are craving human interaction.
Right.
Tap into that.
That's right.
It's
not a one and done. That relationship you build, even if it doesn't result in any other business, is so monumental in that person's life. And remembering that is very important. So I think that's a great place to end, personally.
I think so.
We appreciate you guys listening to the Maybon Perspective. We will see you next time.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.